There are stories that are big deals in politics, and then there are stories that are big deals in Washington, D.C., and sometimes those stories align, and sometimes they don't. One is a seating chart for the White House briefing room. Does it matter? I don't know. Let's talk to Sean about that. He knows a little something about that whole place. Joining me now, Sean Spicer, host of the wonderful Sean Spicer Show. Okay, Sean, the White House is taking control of the seating chart. Now, for those of us who will never be in that room, we don't know what that means. What does it mean?
Well, look, despite what you see on TV, the room's actually kind of small. There's 49 seats, 7 rows of 7. For about 3 decades now, the White House has gave control over the White House Correspondents Association. You can see there on your screen a picture of it. And they just several decades ago decided we don't want to be you guys assign seats. And so the front row went to the Associated Press, NBC, the other wire services, the Washington Post, and kind of in order of what they deemed importance went backwards. I sort of personally called on people as I wish. I told this story before where I would call in the back of the room first just to piss them off. And I think what this comes down to is that these folks in the White House Correspondents Association believe that they own the room. The room is owned by you and me and every other American taxpayer. We are the owners of that room, not them. And so they can take their little nameplate, yank it off. And what Caroline is doing is saying, we have a right to basically reconfigure this. It's not your room. And the big part about this, Jesse, that why people should care is to most people, they go, so what? It's an association. They make a seating chart. But here's the problem. The White House Correspondents Association, in order to be eligible, you have to become a member. And they restrict membership to people that are parts of the legacy media. So we're not members of the White House Correspondents Association, and we probably wouldn't qualify. So when Karine Jean-Pierre was press secretary, she stripped 440 press passes from independent journalists. And nobody in the White House Correspondents Association said a damn word, not one. For all these people who love to talk about the freedom of the press and the First Amendment, they said nothing because they only care about themselves and whether or not they'll get a question, no one else. And what Caroline and this White House is doing is standing up for all the voices in America who have concerns that they might want addressed by the White House. So she's going to reconfigure this, which I think is a phenomenal thing. And I know for many people, they're probably like, what difference does it make? But it does make a difference. You crowd out other voices. You ensure that Caitlin Collins from CNN can grandstand in the front row as opposed to the back row where she probably deserves to be.
Yeah, no, she does. Let's shift topics here to Trump and a third term. Here he was.
You said you were not joking about a third term, about possibly wanting a third term. Does that mean you're not planning to leave office on January 20th?
I'm not looking at that, but I'll tell you, I have had more people ask me to have a third term. We have a long way to go before we even think about that. But I've had a lot of people. Yeah, go ahead. Did you have something?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask, do you think that's an appropriate precedent to set, even if it wasn't you in this position, to see a president serve a third term?
I don't want to talk about a third term now because no matter how you look at it, we got a long time to go. We have a long time. You know, we have almost 4 years to go. And that's a long time. But despite that, so many people are saying, you've got to run again. They love the job we're doing. Most importantly, they love the job we're doing.
Sean, now, you know the man better than I do. I don't know him personally, but this is so obviously Trump joking and getting a rise out of them that it's so obvious. It's shocking to me, but of course, they're having a good time with it today.
Absolutely. Look, there's 2 things about this. Number one, you're right. He's having fun. He's trolling them, as the kids like to say, making them think, hey, and by the way, all he said was, we're not thinking about it yet. Lots of people are telling me. I mean, that's very different than what you read about in the media today. He's not saying he's running. He said, people are telling me to run. Secondly, there is this outstanding question. Again, I don't think it will happen, but this idea of you run somebody like J.D. Vance for the top of the ticket, he takes the oath of office and then immediately steps down, and his vice president, which, you know, as the theory goes, would be Donald Trump, he would then assume the presidency immediately. Now, look, I have a hard time believing that would play well, but it's a possibility, obviously, and it's a legal possibility. But I think that, look, at the end of his term, he'll be 82 years old. I think it's time that he would love to go back and really enjoy time. But the amount of energy he exhibits right now, I can see why he wants to keep these guys on the edge of their seats.
Yeah, no, it was just so obviously a troll job, but of course everyone has to be up in arms about it. Okay, let's talk about the media, John, something you're well versed in. You've been talking a lot about how the very same people who covered up the fact that Joe Biden was a walking cadaver are now writing books about the fact that Joe Biden was a walking cadaver. Could you explain that to me?
There are four books coming out in the next 60 or so days about Joe Biden's decline. Now, Jesse, just stop for a second and recognize this. The first one coming out is called Fight by Jonathan Allen of NBC and Amy Parnas of The Hill. Jake Tapper is the one that they apparently are very concerned about, called Original Sin. These folks are going to profit from covering up a story. They gaslit us. Jake Tapper in particular, remember that classic exchange with Laura Trump where he says, you have no right to talk about his cognitive ability. You're not a doctor. And now he wants to write a book and presumably make hundreds of thousands of dollars off the fact that he covered it up and is now going to write a book acting like somehow he's this insider about it.
Yeah, that's pretty much par for the course. Sean, April 2nd is coming, and that is going to be
Liberation Day, baby.
That's what they're calling it. What is the thinking in the White House? Obviously, the world is not going to celebrate a massive change to the way things have been. People don't like change. Markets don't like change. Countries don't like change. What is the White House anticipating for troubles and how long they're going to last?
Yeah, by the way, I'll add myself to that list. I'm a curmudgeon. I don't like change either, Jesse. But
no doubt.
I'll just say this. Look, there's two things. Politicians on both sides of the aisle have squawked for decades about we need to bring back manufacturing in the United States. If you keep doing the same thing, it's not going to come back. President Trump is doing two things that are going to make it happen. When you put these tariffs on, and you're seeing this between Taiwan Semiconductors, Hyundai, Apple, you name it, coming back here to SoftBank, hundreds of millions of dollars, billions of dollars of investment in the United States. Number one, that's happening. Number two, and this is what the media won't tell you. There's this narrative that when the tariffs go in, so Europe has a 10% tariff on autos, that somehow everything's going to cost more. Well, that's true if the other side doesn't make a move. In other words, what no one is explaining to you is that Europe may, and there's already discussions of take their 10% tariff down to say 0, maybe to 2 or something like that. And the price will come down. We will have greater access to their market and the American people will benefit. The bottom line is the media is not explaining this. In countries like Malaysia and Vietnam, who already have very high tariffs, are already proactively saying we will take our tariffs down to avoid Trump's reciprocal tariffs. So guess what that's called? A huge win.
No doubt. Sean, my man, as always, I appreciate you very much.
Thank you. Appreciate you fighting.
All right. I would thank you for coming to my YouTube channel, but I know how brilliant it is, and I know you love it here. So subscribe and watch. We're going to start really ramping things up and putting some funny stuff, some interesting stuff out there, some collaborations. Either way, my YouTube channel is officially the place to be. So stick around.